I am a software developer living in Boston. For 3 years, my relationship with Jessica was everything I could have asked for. We had our routines, our favorite spots, and plans for a future together. Then suddenly she wanted a break, claiming I was cheating with a coworker. I was blindsided and hurt by her accusations. When she returned 5 weeks later, she dropped another bombshell that changed everything. She was pregnant. Where are you watching from today? Let me know in the comments. Hit subscribe and stick around to find out how this shocking situation unfolded. My name is Bartholomew, and at 32, I had built what I considered a good life. I worked as a senior software developer at a promising tech startup in downtown Boston. The work was challenging but rewarding, and after 4 years with the company, I had established myself as a reliable team member who could deliver under pressure. My career was on solid ground, which had allowed me to focus on building a personal life with equal success. I met Jessica 3 years ago at a 4th of July barbecue hosted by my college buddy Marcus. She arrived with another guest, laughing as she tried to balance a plate of watermelon and a drink. When someone accidentally bumped into her, sending the watermelon flying, I was the one who helped clean up the mess. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking, and I was immediately drawn to her intelligence and warmth. Jessica worked as a graphic designer at a marketing agency, and her creative perspective complemented my more analytical approach to life. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant with string lights on the patio. I remember being nervous, changing my shirt 3 times before leaving my apartment. Jessica arrived wearing a blue sundress, her brown hair pulled back, and a smile that immediately put me at ease. The conversation flowed effortlessly as we discovered our shared love for documentaries, hiking, and terrible puns. By the end of the night, I knew there was something special between us. The relationship progressed naturally. We enjoyed trying new restaurants around the city on weekends and taking day trips to the coast during summer months. We both valued our independence and careers while making time for each other. Our friends joked that we were the perfect balance of ambition and affection. After 18 months together, it made sense for Jessica to move into my apartment. It was a 2-bedroom place in Cambridge with large windows and a small balcony where we started growing herbs and tomatoes. Combining our lives felt seamless. We established routines that worked for both of us, like Sunday morning brunches where we would read the news and plan our week ahead. I would cook dinner most nights while Jessica worked late, and she would handle weekend meals when I caught up on coding projects. We discussed future plans openly. We both wanted children eventually, but agreed to focus on our careers for a couple more years. We talked about buying a house in the suburbs, possibly getting married in a small ceremony. Nothing felt rushed or forced. Our relationship seemed to be built on mutual respect, honest communication, and genuine affection. Looking back, there were subtle signs of insecurity I should have paid more attention to. Jessica would occasionally check my phone when I was in the shower or question why I needed to work late. She would bring up her previous boyfriend, Kyle, who had apparently cheated on her repeatedly during their 2-year relationship. I always reassured her, believing transparency would overcome her past trauma. When she asked questions about female coworkers, I answered honestly, never thinking these conversations would later become ammunition. Our life together felt secure until 3 months ago, when my company announced a major product launch. As part of the core development team, I was tasked with implementing several critical features before the deadline. This meant late nights at the office, weekend work sessions, and constant communication with team members, including Amanda, the newly hired front-end developer, assigned to collaborate with me on the user interface. The first sign of trouble came when Jessica found me texting Amanda about a bug at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. I was sitting on our couch, still working after an exhausting day at the office. Jessica had been quiet all evening, and I assumed she was tired from her own work deadlines. When she saw the name on my screen, her expression changed instantly. What began as a casual question about who I was texting quickly escalated into a series of accusations. Who was Amanda? Why was I texting her so late? Was there something going on between us? I explained patiently that Amanda was a coworker, showing Jessica our entire conversation history, which was exclusively about code and project deadlines. I reminded Jessica that she had actually met Amanda at the company holiday party and a team dinner I had invited her to just a month earlier. Amanda was married with a young daughter, a fact Jessica acknowledged remembering. The conversation seemed to end there, but something had shifted. A seed of suspicion had been planted, and I would soon discover how deeply it had taken root. Over the next 2 weeks, Jessica grew increasingly distant. She would ask detailed questions about my workday, specifically about interactions with female colleagues. She began suggesting we meet for lunch near my office, something we rarely did, given our busy schedules. Once she showed up unannounced at 7 p.m., claiming she wanted to surprise me. I was in a conference room with 3 other developers, including Amanda working through a system architecture problem. Jessica seemed relieved but unsatisfied watching Amanda carefully throughout the impromptu dinner she joined us for. I tried to address her concerns directly, asking what I could do to reassure her. I offered full access to my phone, email, and social media accounts. I invited her to meet more of my colleagues. Nothing seemed to fully convince her that my relationship with Amanda was strictly professional. The more I tried to prove my innocence, the more suspicious Jessica became, as though my willingness to be transparent was itself evidence of guilt. The tension at home grew palpable. Our easy conversations were replaced with careful small talk. Our physical intimacy diminished as Jessica often claimed to be too tired or stressed. I suggested couples therapy, but Jessica insisted there was nothing wrong that could not be fixed by me spending less time with Amanda. The breaking point came faster than I anticipated, and when it did, there was little I could do to prevent the collapse of everything we had built together. It was a Friday evening when everything fell apart. I had finally made progress on a particularly challenging section of code and texted Amanda to let her know she could proceed with her part of the project. The message was simple. Fixed the authentication bug. You can start implementing the UI tomorrow if you want. Have a good weekend. Jessica was in the kitchen when my phone chimed with Amanda's reply. You are a lifesaver, Bart. I was worried we would fall behind. Drinks on me next week. The nickname, the offer of drinks, the exclamation marks. All innocent in context, but damning in the eyes of someone looking for confirmation of betrayal. Jessica asked to see my phone, which I handed over without hesitation. She read through weeks of messages between Amanda and me, her expression hardening with each scroll. Do you think I am stupid? Jessica finally asked, her voice unnervingly calm. No one works this much overtime. No one texts about work at 9 p.m. on a Friday. I attempted to explain once more about the project deadline, the importance of this launch to the company, and how normal these hours were in software development. I showed her the group chat with the entire development team that had messages from that same evening. I offered to call my project manager to confirm the timeline and workload. I need a break, Jessica announced, cutting off my explanations. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot be with someone I do not trust, and clearly I do not trust you. The words hit me like a physical blow. 3 years together, and she could discard our relationship based on unfounded suspicions and text messages about work. I asked if she was serious, if she was actually breaking up with me over this misunderstanding. Not breaking up, she clarified. I just need space to think about what I want and whether I can be with someone who puts his job and other women before me. That night, Jessica packed a bag and said she would be staying with her friend Taylor for a while. I asked how long a while might be, but she had no answer. I asked if we could talk again tomorrow after we both had time to cool down, but she said she needed more time than that. As she walked out the door, our apartment suddenly felt cavernous and foreign. The next morning I called Jessica, but the call went straight to voicemail. I texted a simple message. I love you. I have never cheated, and never would. Please, Call me when you are ready to talk. No response came that day or the next. By Monday, I was distracted and emotional at work. Amanda noticed my mood and asked what was wrong. I gave her a vague answer about relationship troubles, not wanting to make her uncomfortable by explaining she was an unwitting participant in the drama. My project manager noticed my decreased productivity and suggested I take a personal day, but I refused. Work was the only thing keeping me from constantly checking my phone for messages from Jessica. On Wednesday, after 5 days of silence, Jessica finally responded to my texts. Her message was brief. I am still processing everything. Please respect my need for space. I replied that I would, though every fiber of my being wanted to go to Taylor's apartment and sort this out face to face. My friends Marcus and Daniel took me out for drinks that weekend, trying to lift my spirits. Marcus, who had known Jessica since before we started dating, seemed particularly troubled by her reaction. "This does not sound like the Jessica I know," he said over beers at our usual spot. "She has always been level-headed. Something else must be going on." Daniel, ever the practical one, asked the question I had been avoiding. "Do you think she might be using this Amanda situation as an excuse? Could there be someone else?" I dismissed the suggestion immediately. Jessica was suspicious of me, not the other way around. Besides, in 3 years, she had never given me any reason to doubt her faithfulness. This was about her past trauma with Kyle and her resulting trust issues, not about another man. As the second week of our break began, I threw myself completely into work. The product launch was approaching, and 14-hour days at the office meant less time alone in an apartment filled with reminders of Jessica. The development team, including Amanda, often worked late into the evening, ordering dinner to the conference room and debugging code until midnight. After a particularly productive session, someone suggested taking a group photo to commemorate the project. 8 exhausted developers crowded together holding coffee cups and making exaggerated, tired faces. Amanda posted it on her professional social media account, tagging everyone and adding, "2 weeks to launch with the best team ever. Number death by code, number worth it." The next morning I woke to several angry texts from Jessica. She had seen the photo, noticed the timestamp of 11:30 p.m., and concluded this was evidence of my lie. The fact that 6 other people were clearly present in the image, including our 50-year-old project manager, seemed irrelevant to her narrative of betrayal. I considered calling her immediately to defend myself yet again, but exhaustion and frustration won out. I replied simply, "This is a group of colleagues working on a deadline. Please call me when you are ready to trust me again." Then I silenced my phone and went to work. That weekend I ran into our mutual friend Rachel at the farmer's market. The conversation was awkward at first, neither of us sure how to address the elephant in the room. Finally, Rachel admitted that she had seen Jessica several times during our separation. "She seems really confused and upset," Rachel said carefully. "I think there is more going on than just suspicion about a coworker. She has been talking about her ex a lot, about patterns repeating themselves." This information troubled me deeply. Was Jessica comparing me to Kyle? Had she convinced herself I was capable of the same betrayal? The thought that she could so fundamentally misunderstand my character after 3 years together was deeply painful. In a moment of determination, I decided to visit Jessica's brother, Jordan. We had always gotten along well, bonding over basketball and craft beer. I found him at the gym where he worked as a trainer and asked if he could spare a few minutes. Over protein shakes in the gym cafe, I explained the situation, hoping for some insight into Jessica's thinking. Jordan sighed heavily before speaking. Kyle really did a number on her man. He cheated multiple times, always with coworkers, always denying it, until she found irrefutable proof. The last time the woman was pregnant. It was messy. This revelation hit me hard. Jessica had told me about Kyle's infidelity, but never mentioned a pregnancy. Suddenly, her extreme reaction to my innocent work relationship made more contextual sense, though it did not excuse her refusal to trust me. "Give her time," Jordan advised. "She is fighting old demons that have nothing to do with you." Time, however, was exactly what concerned me. How long would it take for Jessica to see the truth? And would our relationship survive such a fundamental breach of trust on both sides? The following weeks passed in a blur of work and emotional processing. The product launch grew closer, and our team spent increasing hours perfecting features and squashing bugs. I maintained minimal contact with Jessica, respecting her request for space, while making it clear I remained committed to our relationship and my position of innocence. During this time, I began seeing a therapist to help process my feelings of betrayal and confusion. Dr. Winters was a thoughtful woman in her 60s who specialized in relationship counseling. In our sessions, she helped me examine the dynamics of my relationship with Jessica more objectively. "It sounds like Jessica's past experiences have created a filter through which she interprets your actions," she explained during our second session. "Her reaction is about fear, not facts." Dr. Winters encouraged me to consider what boundaries I needed in a healthy relationship, regardless of whether Jessica and I reconciled. These conversations prompted deep self-reflection about my own patterns, including my tendency to over-explain and become defensive when questioned, which sometimes escalated rather than resolved conflicts. I also realized I had been neglecting my own social connections outside of Jessica. During our separation, I reconnected with college friends, joined a weekend hiking group, and even signed up for a cooking class I had been interested in for months. These activities provided welcome distractions and reminded me that my identity existed independently of my relationship. At work, the product finally launched to positive early reviews. Our team celebrated with a dinner at an upscale restaurant downtown, a welcome release after weeks of intense pressure. I allowed myself to enjoy the evening laughing with colleagues and feeling proud of our collective achievement. Amanda and I had developed a solid professional friendship through the project. Though I was careful to maintain appropriate boundaries not out of guilt, but out of respect for my relationship with Jessica, complicated as it currently was. 5 weeks into our separation, with minimal communication between us, I received a text from Jessica that changed everything. "Can we meet tomorrow? There is something important I need to talk to you about." The cafe near our apartment at 11 a.m. My mind raced with possibilities. Was she finally ready to talk things through? Had she realized her accusations were unfounded? Or was this the official end of our relationship? I replied with a simple, "I will be there," and spent a restless night wondering what morning would bring. The cafe was busy with the late morning crowd when I arrived. Jessica was already there, seated at a table by the window, a untouched mug of tea before her. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes, and her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She wore an oversized sweater I had not seen before, and her usually immaculate nails were unpolished. "Thank you for coming," she said, as I sat down across from her. Her voice was subdued, lacking the anger of our last interactions. "Of course," I replied, ordering a coffee from the server who stopped by. "How have you been?" Jessica looked down at her hands, twisting a napkin nervously. "I have been better. I owe you an apology, Bartholomew. I jumped to conclusions about you and Amanda. After seeing more of your work photos and talking with some of your colleagues at a networking event last week, I realized there was nothing inappropriate happening. The admission should have brought relief, but instead I felt a surge of frustration. 5 weeks of emotional turmoil because she would not trust me, and now a casual acknowledgement of her mistake. Before I could respond, Jessica continued, her voice dropping almost to a whisper. "There is something else. Something important." She paused, taking a deep breath. "I am pregnant." The words hung between us as the busy cafe continued its morning rhythm around our suddenly altered world. My mind struggled to process this information, questions tumbling over each other. How When? What did this mean for us? Say something, Jessica prompted after my prolonged silence. How far along are you? I finally managed. 10 weeks, she replied softly. The timeline registered immediately. 10 weeks meant conception occurred before our separation, during a period when our physical relationship had already become strained due to her suspicions. It also meant she had known or suspected her pregnancy during some portion of our time apart, yet had chosen not to tell me. You have known about this while we have been separated, I asked, working to keep my voice even. Jessica nodded, tears forming in her eyes. I found out 3 weeks ago. I was scared and confused. The pregnancy hormones have been affecting my emotions too. Looking back, I think they were making me more suspicious and irritable, even before I knew I was pregnant. Why not tell me immediately? I asked, the hurt evident in my voice despite my attempt to remain calm. Because I still thought you were cheating, she admitted. Then I gradually realized I was wrong. My mind was creating connections that were not there. The hormones, my history with Kyle, the stress of my own work deadlines. It all created this perfect storm of paranoia. As Jessica spoke, I noticed she was watching me, carefully gauging my reaction. She reached across the table for my hand. I know we have things to work through, but this is our baby Bartholomew. We are going to be parents. The joy that should have accompanied such news was tempered by the circumstances. While part of me was excited about the prospect of fatherhood, another part remained deeply troubled by the foundation of distrust that now underlay our relationship. Jessica had denied me 5 weeks of knowledge about my own child. Weeks I could never get back. I need some time to process this, I said finally. This is a lot to take in. Jessica looked surprised, as though she had expected me to immediately move past our issues given the news of her pregnancy. What is there to process? We are having a baby. I made a mistake about Amanda. We can put this behind us and move forward as a family. Her dismissal of the serious breach of trust between us struck me as deeply problematic. Jessica, you accused me of cheating, refused to believe me when I told you the truth, cut me off for over a month, and kept your pregnancy from me for 3 weeks. Those are not small issues we can just sweep aside. Jessica's expression hardened slightly. So now you are the one who needs space. Now that I am pregnant and need your support. The conversation was veering into dangerous territory, with emotions threatening to override rational discussion. I took a deep breath. I am not saying I will not support you. I am saying I need a day or two to think about what this means for us. Just like you needed time to think about our relationship. We parted with tense agreement to speak again in 2 days. As I walked home alone, my mind whirled with conflicting emotions. I was going to be a father, something I had always wanted, but under circumstances I had never imagined. That evening I called Marcus and asked if he could meet for a drink. I needed a trusted friend's perspective on this complicated situation. We met at a quiet bar, where I shared the shocking development. Congratulations on the baby, Marcus said cautiously. But this timing seems strange. Are you sure everything adds up? His question caught me off guard. What do you mean? Marcus looked uncomfortable, but continued. It is just that Taylor's boyfriend Ryan mentioned seeing Jessica with some guy at a bar a couple weeks ago. Ryan thought it was odd since he knew you two were on a break, but the guy seemed very familiar with her. This information sent a cold sensation through my body. Did Ryan recognize the guy? He did not know him, but he said Jessica seemed very comfortable with him, like they knew each other well. I thanked Marcus for his honesty, though part of me wished he had kept this observation to himself. Now a new seed of doubt had been planted in my mind. I spent a restless night, contemplating the possibility that Jessica's accusations had been projection of her own behavior, a common psychological phenomenon my therapist had mentioned during one of our sessions. The next day I made a difficult decision. Before committing to a future with Jessica and our child, I needed to verify her story and behavior during our separation. This was not just about my relationship with her, but about the foundation of trust we would need as co-parents, regardless of our romantic status. I began with a careful review of social media, something I had avoided during our separation to respect her privacy. Several photos appeared from nights out, with friends, typical activities that gave me no cause for concern. Then I found a comment on one of Taylor's photos from 3 weeks ago. Great to see the old crew back together. Kyle still cannot believe you are moving to Chicago next month. The mention of Kyle, Jessica's ex-boyfriend who had cheated on her, appeared in a photo where Jessica was clearly present, smiling widely with a drink in hand. My stomach tightened. While this proved nothing by itself, it contradicted Jessica's narrative that she had spent our separation reflecting on our relationship in isolation. With growing unease, I texted Taylor directly. We had never been particularly close, but she had always been friendly. Taylor, I need to ask you something important about Jessica during our break. It affects a major life decision. Can we talk? Taylor's response came several hours later. A single word. Okay. We met at a coffee shop the following morning. Taylor looked nervous as she stirred her latte, avoiding eye contact. Jessica told me about the baby, I began. Before we move forward, I need to know if there is anything that happened during our separation that might affect this situation. Taylor shifted uncomfortably. What exactly are you asking? Bartholomew, did Jessica see Kyle while we were apart? Not just at group gatherings, but privately. Taylor's expression told me everything before she spoke. Look, I am caught in the middle here. Jessica is my friend, but you have always been good to me too. Please, Taylor. Please, Taylor. Please. Jessica is my friend. This is about a child's life. After a long pause, Taylor sighed. Yes, she saw Kyle several times. He reached out when he heard you two were on a break. They had coffee first, then drinks then. She trailed off looking miserable. Then what I pressed, though, I already knew the answer. She spent the night at his place. More than once. She said it was closure that she needed to resolve her feelings about him, to be sure about her feelings for you. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Jessica had been with Kyle while accusing me of infidelity. Worse, she was now pregnant, and the timing suddenly seemed very convenient. I thanked Taylor for her honesty and left my mind racing. The possibility that the child might not be mine now loomed large. I spent the afternoon researching prenatal paternity testing options, learning they were safe but required invasive procedures during pregnancy. Non-invasive tests existed but were expensive and not fully conclusive. The most reliable option would be testing after birth, but that meant months of uncertainty. When Jessica and I met again as planned, I was emotionally prepared for a difficult conversation. We sat in our apartment, the first time she had been back since leaving 5 weeks earlier. I have had time to think, I began carefully, and there is something we need to discuss before making any decisions about our future. Jessica nodded encouragingly, clearly expecting a positive resolution. I know you saw Kyle during our separation, I stated, watching her expression carefully. The color drained from her face. Who told you that? Does it matter? Is it true? Jessica's silence was confirmation enough. Finally, she spoke. It was not what you think. We just talked, caught up. He is moving to Chicago soon. Taylor told me you spent nights at his place, Jessica. Multiple nights. Jessica's expression hardened. So, you have been investigating me. Talking to my friends behind my back. Please, do not deflect. Did you sleep with Kyle while we were apart? We were on a break. You do not get to question what I did during that time. Her defensive tone told me everything I needed to know. I took a deep breath. Given the circumstances and timing, I think we need to confirm the paternity of the baby before making any decisions about our future. Jessica's face contorted with anger. Are you serious right now? After everything, you are questioning if this is your baby? How dare you? How dare I? Jessica, you accused me of cheating with no evidence, refused to believe me when I told you the truth, left me slept with your ex. Boyfriend got pregnant. And now you are upset that I have questions. Do you realize how that sounds? This is your child, Bartholomew. I cannot believe you would even suggest otherwise. If that is true, you should have no problem with a paternity test. It would put both our minds at ease and give us a clean slate to move forward, whether as a couple or as co-parents. Jessica stood up abruptly. I am not subjecting myself or my baby to tests because you do not trust me. This conversation is over. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door. Jessica, I called after her. Think about this carefully. Trust goes both ways. If we cannot establish it now, how will we ever build a family? She paused at the door, her back to me. You will regret questioning me like this. When you realize this is your child and come crawling back, I may not be so forgiving. With that, she left, slamming the door behind her. I sat alone in our apartment, wondering how we had reached this point and what the future might hold. The following day brought an unexpected development. I was working from home when my doorbell rang around noon. Opening the door revealed Jessica standing there, but she was not alone. Kyle stood beside her, looking uncomfortable in an expensive suit that seemed at odds with the tense situation. Can we come in? Jessica asked, her voice lacking the anger from yesterday. We need to talk. I stepped aside, allowing them into the apartment. The surreal nature of the situation was not lost on me, as the three of us sat awkwardly in the living room where Jessica and I had once built our life together. Kyle spoke, first, surprising me. Jessica told me about the baby and your concerns. He ran a hand through his hair nervously. Look, man, I need to be straight with you. Jessica and I reconnected during your break. Jessica stared at the floor, uncharacteristically silent. Kyle continued. She reached out to me first, saying she needed closure before fully committing to your relationship. One conversation led to another, and he trailed off, looking to Jessica for help. I was confused and hurt. Jessica finally spoke. I convinced myself you were cheating because it was easier than admitting I still had unresolved feelings for Kyle. When we spent time together, old emotions resurfaced. The thing is, Kyle added, the timing of the pregnancy means there is a real possibility I could be the father. I am moving to Chicago next month for a new job, but I want to do the right thing here. I sat stunned by their joint confession. After weeks of accusations and denial, Jessica was finally acknowledging the truth. The irony was painful. She had projected her own infidelity onto me, perhaps to alleviate her guilt or justify her actions. I am sorry, Jessica said, tears streaming down her face. I handled everything wrong. The pregnancy hormones made me emotional and irrational. I convinced myself you were cheating to justify my own behavior. That is not fair to either of us, I replied calmly, surprising myself with my composure. Pregnancy does not cause someone to create elaborate false accusations or reconnect with an ex. Those were choices you made. Kyle shifted uncomfortably. We both want to do what is right for the child. I have agreed to a paternity test, whenever it is safe to do so. I nodded, appreciating Kyle's maturity in this bizarre situation. That is the right approach. Until then, I think it is best if I step back completely. Jessica looked alarmed. What do you mean, step back? We still might have a future, Bartholomew. This might still be your baby. Jessica, I said gently, but firmly, even if this child is biologically mine, our relationship was broken the moment you chose not to trust me, and then shattered when you reconnected with Kyle, while accusing me of infidelity. That is not a foundation for a healthy family. So you are just giving up on us. On 3 years together. Her tone shifted between anger and desperation. I am choosing to respect myself, I clarified. I deserve a relationship built on trust and honesty. So, does this child, regardless of who the biological father is. Kyle, to his credit, remained respectful throughout this difficult conversation. He provided his contact information and committed to being present for the paternity test. As they prepared to leave, he extended his hand to me. I am sorry it happened this way. For what it is worth, I think you handled this with more class than most would have. After they left, I contacted my therapist for an emergency session. The emotional whiplash of the past 24 hours required professional processing. Dr. Pleiseson's 5-lia pan. Winters helped me work through my complex feelings. The grief of losing the future I had envisioned with Jessica, the shock of her betrayal, and the uncertainty about the child that might or might not be mine. Focus on what you can control, she advised. Your reactions, your boundaries, and your next steps. In the days that followed, I maintained minimal contact with Jessica, communicating only about the paternity testing arrangements. She made several emotional appeals suggesting we could work through this regardless of the test results. But I remained firm in my decision to wait for biological confirmation before considering any path forward. My friends and family rallied around me during this difficult time. Marcus and Daniel helped me move some of Jessica's remaining belongings to storage. My sister flew in from Seattle for a weekend, providing the comfort only a sibling could offer. My parents, though shocked by the situation, offered wisdom from their 40 years of marriage about the non-negotiable importance of trust. Unexpectedly, Amanda from work became a supportive friend during this period, having been unwittingly cast in a central role in the drama. When I explained the full situation, she was appropriately outraged on my behalf, but also offered practical advice from her own divorce years earlier. The weeks of waiting for the paternity test results were some of the most challenging of my life. I threw myself into work, took a brief solo vacation to my favorite hiking spot in New Hampshire, and continued therapy sessions to process my feelings. When the results finally arrived via email on a Tuesday morning, I sat staring at my computer screen for several minutes before finding the courage to open the message. The clinical language spelled out what part of me had suspected since learning of Jessica's time with Kyle. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. The child was not mine. The relief was immediate and overwhelming, followed quickly by a complex mixture of sadness and closure. I forwarded the results to Jessica with a simple message: I wish you and Kyle all the best with your child. Please respect my privacy going forward. Her response came hours later. I am sorry for everything. I hope someday you can forgive me. Forgiveness, I realized, was a journey I would need to undertake for my own peace, regardless of whether Jessica deserved it. But that journey would take time. I later learned through mutual friends that Kyle had postponed his move to Chicago, and he and Jessica were attempting to build a relationship focused on their coming child. The news brought no jealousy, only a hope that they would create a stable environment for the innocent life they had created. As for me, I requested a transfer to my company's Seattle office, where a new project was starting. The physical distance would provide space for emotional healing, and being near my sister and her family offered a support system I now valued more than ever. The farewell dinner with my Boston friends was bittersweet. We reminisced about good times, carefully avoiding direct mentions of Jessica. As I looked around the table at these people who had supported me through the darkest period of my life, I felt a profound gratitude that balanced the pain of what I had lost. 6 months after moving to Seattle, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, overlooking Puget Sound, reflecting on how much had changed. The pain had gradually subsided, replaced by valuable lessons and unexpected growth. My therapist in Boston had connected me with a colleague in Seattle, and our continued sessions helped me process the experience in healthy ways. The transfer to the Seattle office had proven professionally rewarding as well. I led a small team developing a new product, and the fresh challenges kept me engaged and forward-focused. I had made new friends through a local hiking club, and my sister's social circle gradually building a community in my new home. Looking back, I could now recognize red flags I had missed in my relationship with Jessica. Her insecurities had manifested as control and suspicion, long before the final accusations. My own tendency to avoid conflict had prevented me from addressing these issues directly. In therapy, I worked on establishing healthier boundaries and communicating my needs more clearly. The experience had fundamentally changed my approach to relationships. I now valued transparency and consistent behavior over grand romantic gestures. I had learned to pay attention to actions rather than words and to trust my instincts when something felt wrong. A few weeks ago, I met someone at my sister's dinner party. We have been on several casual dates, approaching the relationship with mutual caution and respect. I am neither rushing into emotional commitment nor holding back out of fear. Instead, I am present, honest, and attentive to both her character and my own responses. The most profound lesson from my experience with Jessica was the importance of self-respect. By maintaining my boundaries and requiring honesty, even when it would have been easier to ignore my doubts, I had preserved my integrity. That integrity now forms the foundation for whatever relationships I build in the future. Sometimes life's most painful experiences become our most valuable teachers. Trust once broken cannot be demanded back into existence. It must be rebuilt carefully, consistently, through actions that align with words. And sometimes the healthiest decision is to walk away and start fresh, carrying the wisdom gained, but leaving the pain behind. So, what would you do if you were in my situation? Would you have asked for a paternity test sooner? Would you have given the relationship another chance regardless of the results? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember that even after the darkest storms, clearer skies eventually emerge.